also have enough air.
It is intellectually engaging.
And you can only become a leader when there are problems.
I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether rats from another country, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell him Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odongto. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A very warm welcome to this edition of Behind the Headlines this Wednesday, the 18th of May 2022. This is Behind the Headlines. My name is Charles Odongto, and today we are going to be looking at something COVID-19. We are going to be looking at the going-ins in Parliament, especially the discussion on how the COVID-19 money meant for research was used. Was it used properly? Was it used efficiently, effectively? Was it put to use as it was meant to be? And we are talking about a report, 146 pages of a report by a select committee on science, technology, and innovation on COVID-19 related research for 2019, 2020 to 2021, 2022. And in the dock in Parliament stands Dr. Musenero, who has been the special presidential advisor on epidemics, but is now minister in charge of science and technology. To discuss all that, we have in the studio, let me start with the gentleman seated on my extreme left. We have Honorable Tony Awany, who is the vice chairperson of the select committee, but is also is MP for Nuaya County. Tony, you're most welcome to this show.
Thank you very much, my brother, Dr.
And I must especially admit you to the sitting here because it is your maiden appearance.
It's my maiden appearance, but allow me to thank you for mentoring me.
Don't talk about those.
Sometimes.
Don't talk about that.
It's very rare, but it is the truth.
Okay.
You remember the witch hat?
You're releasing too much information for you.
As media practitioners, you wanted to punish us, some of the politicians.
We do that for the good of the nation. So thank you so much, and I'm proud. If I'd even forgotten about that, but I am proud, and we thank God for that. Thank you. Next to Tony is a man who needs no much introduction as far as TV conversations is concerned. Dr. Wakida Patrick, he is a researcher, he is the ED of Research International. Doctor, you're most welcome to this show.
Thank you, Charles.
I know I almost said welcome back because I thought I'd hosted you here. I noticed that I did that on other forums, and so, but here I want to welcome you.
Thank you, Charles.
It's also your maiden appearance on Behind the Headlines. The last two, Honorable Mapenduzi Ojara, MP for Laibi Bardege in Gulu City. Most welcome back to the show.
I almost described the last two as the usual suspects.
That's what I thought.
Usual suspects. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, my brother Charles, and
Thank you.
greetings to you, our viewers.
Thank you.
Yes.
And finally, Dr. Sarah Birete, who is Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good. Viewer, like I said, we are in Parliament. There is a storm, if you like it, or you know, exchanges. I must admit, it started healthy. It's getting interesting. MPs attacking each other, ministers in the dock, and we are going to be discussing that. Let me start with the men whose committee, I think it was a 5-member committee, Select Committee of Parliament, appointed around November by the current Speaker. Then she was deputy, and as she was presiding over the House, there were a lot of, you know, discussions around how about 120 or so billion shillings was used for research. Did it achieve the intended purposes and all that? And the Honorable Dr. Musenero was mentioned and cited and accused of a number of things. Some of the accusations leveled against her include mismanagement, poor accountability, poor planning, and some of the MPs accused her and her office of usurping powers of a number of formal organizations or entities that should be in charge of the COVID research money. But most importantly, which was cited in the 146th report, which I saw personally, is that she is, which led to a recommendation, a specific recommendation by the committee now before the House. The recommendation is that they preside, which is the Presidential Scientific Initiative on Epidemics, a think tank which was created by the President in 2022. The committee has recommended that it should be disbanded, and one of the reasons that recommendation is being made for is that the preside is supposed to be under the minister's watch, and she is now currently a minister, so she cannot be presiding or watching over herself. Now, those are some of the just brief summaries, but we will be hearing more from the discussants here as the discussion goes on. Tony, your committee made this report. You did the investigations. You have taken about 5 months instead of the 2 weeks that you had been given by the Speaker. Why did you come up with these recommendations against the minister? Some of them actually now, some of your members are now saying the minister should face a vote of censure against her. Why?
Thank you very much, my brother Odonto. For starters, the episode, just like you stated, started on the 4th of November last year during a plenary session when the Minister of Health, Dr. Ruth Acheng, was on the floor giving an update on the COVID vaccinations and the handling of the COVID situations in general. So one of the members of Parliament rose up and expressed a grave point of concern. I'm talking about the Honorable Yona Musinguzi, Member of Parliament for Ntungamu Municipality. He got up and placed some allegations on the misuse of the COVID funds that had been appropriated for the emergency handling of the COVID pandemic. And among the issues he raised was that about 20 billion had been mismanaged. And then he also alleged that an additional 50 billion had also been mismanaged. Some of the concerns he raised was that the Presidential Initiative on Epidemics, here we shall be calling it PRESIDE,
Yeah.
had some questionable status of legality. And then also he raised the issue of the structure of PRESIDE and then the staffing. And so the Speaker, in her wisdom, thought these were very, very grave allegations that should not be let to pass. So in a sense, she constituted a select committee to interrogate these grave allegations. But before constituting those, the select committee, she put the petitioner to task to explain and adduce evidence and perhaps lay on table some of the supporting documents to defend his allegations, which he did. So upon laying some of those documents to defend his allegations, the Speaker constituted the select committee, which had the chair as Choma Xavier, who is a member of parliament for Uganda North, then myself, Tony Awany, member of parliament for Nwaya County, as the vice chair, and then we had Honorable Paul Omara from Otuke, and then the Honorable Aisha Kabanda from Butambala, she's a district woman representative, and then the Honorable Solomon Silwany, representing Bukoli County. So immediately, we were directed to start of the investigation into the grave allegations. So now there were some terms of references that were given to us to help us navigate our way through the investigations. Now some of the terms of references were as follows. We were supposed to establish the progress in developing a locally manufactured COVID-19 vaccine. That was the first terms of reference. The second was to establish the amount of funds so far released for the research, innovation, and COVID-19 vaccines development. The third terms of reference was to establish how effectively such funds had been utilized. And then the fourth was to establish the challenges faced in the development of the COVID-19 vaccines. Then the fifth was to inquire into any other matters incidental to the above. Here, for example, we had to look at the situations of Dr. Wang, who at the emergency situation came up at least with something on the table, some product on the table. And then also like the issue of Professor Lamwaka in Gulu University. Those incidental issues were also to be interrogated. Why, despite the fact that they were not appropriated this money for the vaccines development, they at least came up with something. But the research entities that appropriately got vetted and cleared by PRESIDE and given the money had by that time, within the time of the emergency, failed to produce even a single product on the market. So, Mr. Doctor, we did our job, and we interrogated a number of scientists, including the minister herself. She came and made presentations to the committee, defending herself against the allegations of the Honorable Musinguzi. Then we also invited the Honorable Musinguzi himself to come and make presentations about his allegations. Just like you rightly stated, we thought the investigation was going to take only 2 weeks because we thought the matters were superficial. But as we moved on, we later on discovered that the matters were very, very grave. It's like you are drilling, you're making a drilling for a mineral, and you think it's just somewhere, you know, at the apex of a subterranean layer. But in fact, the issues are deep, deep down there. So we requested the Speaker to give us an extension, because we never wanted to do some patchy work. Because this was an investigation that was scientific, it was technical. So we set the ball rolling. I want to thank the members of the committee for remaining steadfast. This was a well-composed committee with the Honorable Choma Xavier, well-grounded on financial management. My very good friend, Honorable Omara Paul, I always tell him he's a doyen in financial management. Then, of course, myself with a background in science. And then the Honorable Aisha Kabanda, also very well grounded on matters of financial management. And the Honorable Silwan. We did a good job. And we came up with the findings that have since generated a lot of storm on the floor of Parliament. Just like you rightly noted, one of the findings was that, you know, the minister acted irregularly in authorizing virements. That is the reallocation of some of these research funds. From one research entity to another. For example, they would say, you know, this research on the RNA amplification, the self-RNA amplification, which was supposed to be done in collaboration with a research entity in the UK. But because the lead investigator was caught up because of the COVID situation at that site, so the lead investigator could not travel back to Uganda to continue doing this investigation. He was caught up in the UK. So they thought that this project would not take off very well. So they decided to transfer this to another research entity. And you know, in financial management, you need to follow the financial management regulations. And these were being done without authorization. And then two, we also discovered that about 2 billion shillings was unaccounted for. Overall was unaccounted for. And in our recommendations, we have invited the Auditor General to interest himself on that money. Where did it go? Did it develop wings and it flew somewhere else? We came up with that. And then we also came up with other recommendations. For example, the issue of selection of the projects.
These are the 23.
The 23,
because there were 23 that were
23,
approved,
but others
approved for funding.
Yes, which were approved for funding. But about 4 never took off.
At all?
About 4 or 5 never took off at all because of the reasons that I outlined. So in other words, there were 17 projects that were funded.
Instead of 23?
Instead of 23. Okay. Then, the other issue, the other elephant in the room was that out of the 17, it was only about 7 that were cleared by the Uganda National Council of Science and Technology. The rest were like handpicked. And we said this.
By who?
By Preside. Because somehow, you know, for you to come up with some of these research projects for approval, you need to ascertain the viability, the capacity of those projects. And we thought Preside would work hand in hand with the Uganda National Council of Science and Technology. Because later on, there were so many other research entities that complained that they were left out.
Did you talk to all of them?
We talked to some of them. In fact, in the report, you will even read and find out that there were some other entities, research entities, who failed to appear before us for reasons best known to them. But for those who appeared before us, advanced some of those reasons.
Okay.
And then there were general issues of accountability. allow me touch a bit on this. There were general issues of accountability.
I need you to now wind up so that I can bring in your colleague.
There were general issues of accountability.
Like which
Because when we invited the former PS to appear before us in the committee, Dr. Obong, David, because even on the floor of parliament, people were like, you know, the issues of the accountability should be tagged on to the former PS and the former minister. But when the PS Obong appeared before us, I personally chaired that session. And I put this question to him. The issue of this cross of the mess in accountability, who should carry? Should it be you or it should be the minister, Dr. Musenero? The PS told us clearly, in no uncertain terms, that they had a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation and Preside. And in that MOU, they were to be the chief accounting entity to the Ministry of Finance. But then there are clauses that mandated Preside to account to the PS. So that the PS is able to make a general and complete accountability. In the words of the PS Obong, this accountability did not come through from Preside. And he told us that he is still, as long as he's still alive, he would be ready to face any investigating arm, and he comes and clears the air.
Let me ask something finally for this moment. So, is Parliament putting Dr. Musenero on the chopping board in her capacity as the chairperson of Preside or in her current capacity as a minister?
A very interesting question. When Dr. Musenero came before us, we asked her a question. We know you are the minister now for Science, Technology and Innovation, Office of the President.
Yeah.
Are you still the chairperson of Preside? And are you still the presidential advisor? Before the committee, she was on record saying she was still the presidential advisor and that she was the chairperson of Preside. I want to give you an example. When we wrote a letter to Preside, so she was like a super minister.
The police, the lawyer.
So
just a minute, Sarah and Mapenduzi, just hold your fire.
Yes, so when we wrote to Preside to appear before us, because there were issues now about the structure, the lacking structure. So we wrote to the chairperson of Preside. And guess who responded to that letter? It was the minister. So to us, that was a confirmation that she still considered herself both as the chairperson and as the minister.
Okay. Okay. Then finally, there is a recommendation I saw on the floor of Parliament yesterday as the report was being discussed, and whereupon Dr. Musenero also gave her report, which I have a copy of, but I don't want to talk about, you people will talk about it. Did she, no, you made, some of your members have started calling for her censure. Is that what the committee has recommended, or that is being picked off just your report?
You know, in our observation in the report, we said that the minister acted irregularly in authorizing environments. That is the transfer of funds from one project to another.
Yeah.
But then the honorable member of parliament for Bujiri municipality, Basalirwa Asuman, rose up and said, look, the observation here incriminates the minister. But then, this observation that incriminates the minister is not speaking to the recommendation. So I rose up on a point of information. And I told him that, look, well, we have observed, in our observation, we have observed that she acted irregularly. Then the member of parliament for Kazo, the Honorable Dan Chimosho, then got up and moved a motion that, look, let us make an amendment in the recommendation to include that the minister be held liable for some of these actions.
Okay.
And that is where the heat was picked up from.
Okay.
Some people were like, now look, because of that, we want her to first step aside, and then another additional recommendation was made for her to face the IGG, let alone the Auditor General, but the IGG.
Okay.
And so that additional recommendation to let her face the IGG and have an extended investigation was the one that now gave the friction to the heat that is now calling for her censure.
Dr. Wakida,
yes.
You have read these reports, both the one of Dr. Musenero and the committee, the select committee.
Yes.
From your reading, are they acting fairly?
I think I'll
Is
start.
there any shortcoming
I want to start
in there?
from the point of disappointment.
Yeah.
And my colleague, I've never met you, but I'm disappointed. You made this report yourself.
As a committee?
As a committee.
We made this report as a committee.
Wait, because
or interrogating different entities.
I have come
Professors from Busetema University, from Makerere University, from UVRI, and a lot others.
I have come here to explain to Ugandans that there was dishonesty.
There
The
was
presentation, in the presentation of this report, there is still dishonesty in my colleague here. They made many recommendations.
True.
When he sits here and he talks about negative recommendations, that report becomes null and void. And yet the report is so good. This report is so good. But of all the recommendations they made, he's only talking about the negative recommendation. And for me, that starts to ring the bell.
No, the positive, I was yet to come,
I
was yet coming to the positive recommendation.
I want to explain to Ugandans.
Give him the
I want
opportunity.
to explain it to Ugandans. You were very clear the episode of the allegations. And I want Ugandans to know the allegations that were made. Allegation number one, that Honorable Msinguzi made in the parliament, that there was no science going on. That in fact he had visited Preside and he did not even see a laboratory in Preside. That's allegation number one. Allegation number two, that Musenero had misused the 50 billion shillings. That was allegation number two. Allegation number three, that Preside was a company whose directors included Musenero, Musenero's husband, Musenero's relatives. And the last allegation was that even when he went to Preside, he found that even the police officer who was guarding Preside was a relative to Musenero. Those were the allegations.
By Yona?
By Yona.
Yes.
He made it on the floor of Parliament.
Last year.
From that, there was a design of the terms of reference. Terms of references are aimed at guiding you in your investigation. We do this every day in research. Term number one is very clear, as he said. Establish the progress in the development of locally manufactured vaccine for COVID-19. That was term number one. I want to take you direct to the recommendation you made on that, on term number one. The committee established that there were 23 projects that had been approved for funding, which were undertaken by key scientific research institutions such as Makerere University, College of Science, College of Veterinary Science, Animal Resources and COVAP, Joint Clinic Research Center, Uganda Virus Research Institute. The committee established that. True or false? And then they went ahead and said, overall, this is their recommendation. In their summary, they said overall, 23 projects were approved to receive fundings. Of these, 15 progressed. 15 progressed. It's in your report. 5 stalled for reasons he's giving. 3 didn't progress. I don't know whether my colleague here read his own report, and that's a disappointment for me. I wanted to take you point by point that they were asked to investigate. They were also asked to investigate, establish the amount of funds so far spent on COVID. They came here, and that was term number 2, establish the amount of funds so far spent. Overall allocation and release of COVID. 146 billion was approved for COVID-19 related research in financial year 2019-2020, 2020-2021. However, on the 67.43 billion was released, representing 47.4. It's in your report, true or false?
Yes.
Now, if it's in your report, there is this table here. You read your own. Here, 64.47. Why should we mislead Ugandans? Is it because they don't know how to read? And this is why I'm here. Now, all of the funds received in 2019-2020 were for purchase of equipment. And that purchase of equipment, the first release was 5 billion, released to Ministry of Science and Technology for this purchase.
That's the one of 5.3 billion?
Yes, 5.3 billion.
Which was released in financial year 2019-2020?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was released to Ministry of Science and Technology. Yeah. They went ahead and purchased this equipment. I want to remind Ugandans that Musenero was handed the ministry on the 21st of July, 2021. That's when she became a minister. You know, you committee member.
From Dr. Elioda?
Yes, on the 21st of July, 2021. That's when she got the file of the ministry. And here, it's very clear that most were used to purchase equipment related to COVID. Most in that office, who was there? It was Mr. Elioda and who?
It was Dr. Elioda and Mr. Obong, the PS.
He was the accounting officer at that time. They did the purchase of the equipment. In the financial year 2020-21,
just to interject, it is good information for him.
Wait.
It would be good information for you.
No.
It would be good information for you.
Give me the information?
Yes. Well, Mosti had the responsibility of purchasing the equipment.
Yes.
And Honorable, you know, my people are mixed.
Yes.
So when you say Mosti,
that is Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation.
And I wish you can allow me to...
The issue here is, the elephant in the room here is about the operational fund.
Wait a minute.
That was given.
I am going to come to that.
And the Minister, Elioda, just said very clearly when he appeared before us, that look, as a minister, because the terms were clearly spelled out in the MOU, Preside was supposed to have been supervised and superintended by Mosti.
I want to come here.
But the minister made it very clear that look, this was a bigger thing he could not actually control.
Okay.
It was like the cat. It was like the cat pulling the horse.
When you invite me on a show like this,
you have given him the information.
I want to give you an information.
Yes.
You are a member of parliament and you must know this.
Yes. I've been in the thick of the investigation and I'm telling you what I know.
Listen to me, because I don't want anybody. Because
you know, my friend here is reading selectively.
No, this is the report.
Yes, it is my report.
Let's do this.
Yes.
Let's do this procedurally. Tony, let him submit. If you have some burning issue, what you do, you take notes.
Yes, take a note.
And then as I bring in the rest, what we usually do, in this time we are setting the ground. With preliminary, let me call them the facts as they are in the report. And I like the fact that both of you are providing facts from the report,
Now-
and then we shall come to
Now,
the time when
this
you can
report-
interject and all
This report
that.
I am reading is a report of the committee.
Yeah.
And
I've gone through it.
and I
I
have
know
very
Alex
good-
this evening,
and-
but I ran through the 146 pages.
What is annoying is that nobody is explaining to Ugandans that out of the 120 something billion that had been budgeted for, only 67 billion was released by Minister of Finance to Minister of Science and Technology. Nobody is talking about that. They have kept it quiet. Now, I want to go to the 5.3 billion shillings. You can add these numbers. 5.3 billion shillings was released to Ministry of Science and Technology. They were responsible for the purchase of equipment. In their report, they don't show whether these equipments that were purchased were either there, they were distributed, or not.
Maybe we can say whether this equipment, which was budgeted for, was purchased, and whether it is there on the ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, in financial year 2020-21, 37.13 billion was availed towards COVID-19 related research and innovation activities. The money was disaggregated into operational expenses of the preside secretariat, 3.3 billion shillings. Equipment and purchase of COVID projects, 15.8 billion shillings. And operational funds of 15.245 billion shillings for scientists carrying out research under preside. And then 2.7 billion, 2.74 billion for most was the ministry, was the Ministry of Science and Technology.
Yeah.
Under the supervision of Mr. Yoda.
Yes.
And a bond.
Yeah.
They received
the PS.
2.74 billion. When you add that money, you get 37.13 billion shillings. Now, I want to go one by one. The Uganda shillings, 3.3 billion shillings, operational expense for preside secretariat. This money was released from Minister of Finance and sent to State House. Remember, preside.
Which month was this?
I can't tell the month, but this is in the report.
But this is last year?
Yes.
Yes.
The 3.35 billion shillings was released and it was sent directly to State House. Remember, this preside project
was
under State House.
Yes.
So anything Msenero needed, whether desk, whether consumable, she had to make a requisition. To where? To State House. If Msenero...
just a question, a clarification question. Yes. There was, I saw in one of the appendices, there was an MOU between Preside and Ministry of Finance.
I am going to come on that.
So was this money being sent to Preside as the think tank, because Preside was created as a think tank, or was it being sent to State House, which is a budget? Because
this is a budget. It wasn't sent from Ministry of Science and Technology. The 3.3 billion shillings. It came straight from Ministry of Finance to State House.
Okay.
For support of the Secretariat of Preside.
Preside, okay.
And I want to clarify what it was Preside. These people who went to investigate this were not able to define what Preside was. Preside was a project.
Yeah.
Museveni's project. Where he said, I am tired of relying on other people.
Actually, he didn't talk about it, but it is in the report.
And it's in the report.
It is in the report.
Now, 3.3 billion shillings was to support the Secretariat of Preside. Remember, Preside is not an organization. It's not a corporation. And I am happy that, Tony, you were able to establish that. But remember the allegation, which you don't talk about, that this had directors, and one of the directors was Musenero's husband, Musenero Hassoff. You don't talk about this. These were the allegations. Now, I want to go to the next thing. We've established that 3.3 billion shillings was sent to State House. And I'm very sure State House will not deny that. The second, 3.75 billion for the purchase of equipment and operation. The funds for the purchase of equipment was directly managed by most. You state it here in your own report, where the scientists submitted their requisition for the equipment. You went ahead and purchased. True or false? Who purchased this? And I want to pose a question here to you, all of you. Okay, assuming this money was for purchase of equipment. Who managed the purchase of equipment? Who would be the right person to give accountability of 15, I'm talking about 15 for purchase of equipment, 15.8 billion shillings.
Period?
Yes.
What is the month?
Exactly the period before Musenera ascended.
It must be the
minister.
PS.
Yes.
Must be the PS.
Very good. 15.8 billion. Of the 33 now, we are rolling down to 33 billion used for purchase equipment. Again, you come here in your own report, and this is why I'm disappointed. You say that there was operation funds, and do you know how much that was? 15.2 billion shillings. Again, the 15.2 billion shillings came from Ministry of Finance directly.
15 point what?
0.2 billion shillings.
How about the 27 billion for additional operational funds in 2021, 2022?
Let us first.
Those are the ones actually that we should actually be talking about.
Wait. I am still coming because I am reading their own report. 15.2 billion shillings was sent from Ministry of Finance to Ministry of Science and Technology for operationalization of the projects under preside. For operationalization of the project under preside. That had been budgeted. Of that, about 2.6 billion shillings never appeared. You get the point? If you go through the receipt, the transfers from Ministry of Science and Technology to the scientists, you don't find the 2.6 billion shillings. Now, there are two things here, there are two theories, and which I think somebody raised this in the House. You should have established, did this money leave Ministry of Finance to Ministry of Science and Technology? Did this money leave Ministry of Science and Technology to the scientists? And that is, if I was investigating this, I would start with the 2.6 billion shillings. Because that is the room. He said that is the what? The problem here. Because when you read, when you investigate, you discover one thing, that it is true. The 15.8 was used to purchase the equipment. And about 12 point something billion was used to purchase, for operational. Each of those have got the Ministry of Science and Technology transfer receipt. The money that is not seen here, and indeed, which I would have expected a competent committee report to report on, was whether they went to the Ministry of Finance to establish whether that money was released, because it's possible. Remember, proceeding after that, the Ministry of Science and Technology was closed. Could it be that it didn't come from the Ministry of Finance? Could it be that the Ministry of Finance released the money to the Ministry of Science and Technology and it didn't release that money to the scientists? Now,
there was a situation here when the minister was put on spot for blocking a sector budget.
No, you see, this is what annoys. Yes. And I want to explain that. Here is a ministry.
The minister has been on spot for blocking the sector budget.
Wait.
And she gave explanations for that.
You see, Tony,
she didn't make it on record.
Tony, I want to leave this house having a very high respect.
Can I also say that actually we have the minister, yes. Where we have some gray area, she will be happy to come on.
I have done competent research.
She is online, she's listening.
You hear this? I have very competent explanation for that.
Yeah.
The minister was appointed. He was only able to ascend office
in July. Yeah.
The previous minister could not hand over the office. But I want to ask you one thing. The ministry had been abolished. We've entered a new financial year, which starts on the 30th of July. Is it?
The 1st of July.
If you are the one appointed, the permanent secretary of the ministry had been fired. The minister himself has been fired. You are the minister. You know that the minister has been moved to another department. Would you let that man be released?
No.
Because what she did was to tell the Minister of Finance, please hold. I am still waiting for public service to give me the structure of the ministry. I read that letter. I went to public service. They struggled until recently. They didn't have a structure. Assuming that man was released, the other minister, Mr. Leon, has been fired. The permanent secretary has been fired. What would you do in the interest of the
Surely
public?
they were disbanded, not even just fired. But
Yes.
let me ask Tony. Tony, in your report, in your investigation, did you talk to the former PS-ST, Ministry of Finance? Did you talk to the State House, is it the Comptroller?
Yes.
Did you talk to them to establish, as a committee, this irregularity?
Yes.
Did they?
We did not talk to the former PSST, but we talked to the current PSST, who came with an undersecretary from the Ministry of Finance. And we put this question to him.
To the undersecretary?
Yes, not to the undersecretary, the PSST.
But he wouldn't know.
But the undersecretary was there.
Undersecretary knows.
I'm saying the undersecretary. Did you put it to the undersecretary?
Yes, we put it to the undersecretary. And then the response was, the minister acted irregularly.
In what?
Irregularly.
In what?
In blocking the sector budget.
Why did they accept?
So,
Because
instead of writing to block the sector budget,
no.
she should have written.
You see.
Listen.
Maybe we need to come in now.
I need to bring in the rest of the colleagues.
Yeah,
let me
Because
let me
the
bring in.
PSST and undersecretary are on record.
Okay, let me bring in the Honorable Mapenduzi. Luckily, you also participated in following some of this COVID, the COVID shenanigans. Let me call them that for lack of
money haste. COVID, the money haste.
the drama around COVID and its money issues. Do you see some irregularities in the manner of handling the issues? Is the committee, in your view, as an MP, a colleague MP to your colleagues, did the committee do a stellar job? And I know that how hard that is going to be for you to ask you to judge the performance of your colleagues. Is the committee, I just need your fair judgment, is the committee being fair to Dr. Monica Musenero? Especially where information is coming out that out of the 146 that she stands accused of, actually not all of it was given, but also that possibly the committee did not go the full length as for so many limitations to add some of these things, in your view?
Well, I'll start from the other angle, talking about COVID and how funds got managed. I would begin by looking at the difficult period we went through. And so I'll not forget to say thank you. I will actually continue thanking the people who sacrificed their lives, our medical personnel.
Some are unpaid up to now.
Exactly. Yes, some are unpaid up to now, but doesn't stop me from thanking them.
I know.
Exactly. So I remain extremely grateful because I got COVID in the first wave. And when I went to Gulu Regional Referral Hospital, I know how much those medical people sacrifice. Of course, I wasn't badly off. Mine was majorly asymptomatic. But I saw some of the people how they were struggling to live and the sacrifices those people made. And so for me, I look at the bigger picture, the difficult period and the sacrifices made. I think different people did their best to save lives, and we should commend them for that, including the people at the ministry, including different people in government offices, the media, and different people played their different roles. And so even when we talk, we shouldn't forget the contributions. Sometimes one or two mistakes can make us completely move away from talking about the bigger picture. So that is the angle I'm starting from. And I also want to thank the President. This idea of starting Preside, this initiative, I think was very good. The intention was very good. And as we all know, this was specifically an initiative to make sure that, you know, both technical and supervisory support is given to the scientists and researchers. And I think today all of us can agree that indeed we have got researchers, we have got scientists who can make this country proud. What remains is what else we have to do, how much we have to do to support the researchers and the scientists, so they can do much more. Because when you look at what Professor Gwang did, when you look at, actually I'm not happy that many other scientists were not supported. Like when you go to Gulu University, Dr. Lamwaga and the team, what they were doing, and I think they were promised funds and all that then. But looking at the time, it's commendable that today we now know how capable we are, and we should be challenged as a country that we provide what it takes, so our own people can also provide solutions to, because COVID has taught us a lesson. But Lady Charles, again, I want to, when the two gentlemen talk, the two of us, Dr. Sarah and myself, I'm sure I was looking at you and turning and looking at them, and I said, okay, so what is going on here? No. I know you are non-violent, and Honorable Tony is equally non-violent. So I knew at some point you would stop, but I was wondering, because Dr. Wakida said he's extremely disappointed, and then disappointed that Tony did not talk about some of the things he wanted to hear. And then Tony saying, you know, he did not finish. He started from where I wanted. Oh, yes. And yeah, because
I started from where the question demanded.
Exactly. So I see two sides. I see Tony starting from where I want, and I also see Dr. Wakida getting annoyed for Tony not starting from where he wanted. Absolutely. And but that shouldn't make us.
The equation will be balanced.
Exactly.
The boat will balance.
The boat will balance.
Yeah, that shouldn't make us. What is the main thing here? First, I want to thank Dr. Musenero, the minister, for the contributions that she has made. I think she made real sacrifices, and sometimes when we start something new, mistakes are made. And so it's important to recognize that. But when we begin to talk about public funds, when we begin to talk about how systems should function, when we begin to talk about accountability, even when it's 1,000 shillings, our position should be clear on systems building. Our position should be clear on accountability. Our position should be clear on how we manage public offices. These are the key things I am looking at. And actually that is the angle I am looking at this report. It's not wrong for anybody to become a whistleblower. And when Honorable Yona got up to raise these issues, I was in Parliament. At some point when the Speaker demanded that he should provide evidence and he started providing documents, and he emotionally said, I can even place myself, I can lay myself because I'm a witness and all that. But I'm very happy that the Speaker, just as Honorable Tony put it, took the decision that this matter should be carefully examined by a committee. A committee, I believe, did a good job. A good job because if you look at the report, just like you were critically analyzing, when you look at the different terms of reference and you ask if this was the terms of reference, did they do a good job to get this? And the document tells you what they found out. Ladit Charles, the question in this document is not whether the committee was not asked to find out whether all the monies planned was released. The committee was tasked to find out how much funding had been given. And the report is clear, and actually they did a good job to indicate that, look, this was the planned amount, but from this, only this amount was released. And so that should take us to another question, that if we have that goodwill of supporting the scientists and we plan for 100 and something billion, how do we provide only 40-something percent? Do we have that goodwill?
Absolutely.
And exactly. Do we have that goodwill? That debate, so it's to me, it's not going to just end with Musenero. The report should trigger a lot more discussion about our commitment to pursuing that dream, that was given birth by the president, the dream of having this, but also the report indicates monies are not accounted for. And the question is, how do you then fail to account when you are charged with the responsibility of executing specific roles? You should be held accountable. So there, we should ask further, where is that money? But the committee reported also, there are many things. The committee indeed observed that the intention was good, positive steps were made, and actually there were also suggestions on how improvement should be made from within Preside so it can function effectively.
Okay.
And then the other question is about whether, just like Honorable Tony put it, when the minister appeared on the floor of Parliament and she said she's already minister, she's no longer the chairperson, she's no longer this. And then the committee is reporting something different.
Okay.
And then we were wondering, so what exactly? So for me, the bigger picture here is that, yes, there are accountability issues, and I'm happy that Parliament decided that a lot more investigation should be done involving the Auditor General, involving the IGG. That is okay, because no one should fear being investigated, even for 50 times. It's okay, as long as we are clean.
Good. At that point, Honorable Musenero has come on.
Yes.
And I just want to put to her some 3 or 4 questions. And if you panelists have some questions, you will also put to her. And then we let her go and we come back to the studio. I know that we are supposed to go for a break, but since she's online and technology being what it is, we could lose her. So, Sarah, I want to apologize, but I will definitely
but
bring you on board.
Before that, I needed to say this.
Yes.
I needed to say this. I just wanted to, just from where because I saw Dr. Wakida raising a number of issues, very important issues, but also his expression, of disappointment and very vivid. I wanted to say that Parliament has done a commendable job, and even the spirit of the discussion, because for me, we should not talk in fear, and we shouldn't fear to talk.
Yeah.
And if somebody has not done the right thing, we should be able to point out and say this is not right. And these are public offices.
Yeah. Okay.
And so even the decision that the Honorable Minister should step aside, I think that's commendable.
Okay.
Because in any civilized world, when there are doubts and questions, you should honorably say, well, if you think there are mistakes, go ahead and find it.
Okay.
Yes.
Good, except that we don't have that culture.
It's very rare in Uganda.
The discipline is very rare. Let production team, I see Honorable Dr. Musenero Monica online. Can she come through? Hello, Doctor.
Hello.
Doctor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Very well, Doctor. Thanks a lot. Doctor, you stand accused and you have been forwarded in a recommendation to be further investigated by the IGG, by the Auditor General, and do you feel unfairly treated by the committee? Are you ready to subject yourself to further scrutiny over the COVID research funds?
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak, because I feel that this is a safe space where I can be heard. I first of all want to thank Honorable Mapenduzi for appreciating us, the scientists. You know, we put our lives on the line. We put our very own lives on the line. I've spent my life fighting epidemics. You don't fight an epidemic if you love money more than human life. It is not 1 year. I have spent many years, 20 years, fighting epidemics in all these countries. Yes, I feel extremely unfairly treated, and even Honorable Tony knows. They know that despite all the findings and the report that they made, when you look in the terms of reference for that committee, there was no term of reference saying investigate Musenero, because Musenero is not the only one who received the funds for COVID research. But when after doing all the work, showing all that tremendous work, they tried to make Musenero look a criminal. Now, let me reiterate a few things that Dr. Wakida said, because he has read the report, I can see, and he has done his research. Honorable, all the honorable members and our host, Preside did not receive money. There was no accounting officer in Preside. I was not an accounting officer. I want to make that clear. We signed a memorandum of understanding. I don't know if Dr. Wakida has a copy there. And the memorandum of understanding was very clear. Now, what was disappointing for me is the committee chose to ignore Section 4 of the Memorandum of Understanding, which spells out the roles of MOSTI, of Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. Very clear. Then they went for a very small part, which was 5 point something, which was meant in the unlikely event that the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation gives Preside money, which was unlikely, because the money which came was assigned to specific projects. And I can tell you that there are letters that we wrote. The memorandum of understanding was very clear. Preside would write, I would write letters to the permanent secretary telling him, please, we have technically said that these particular projects have fulfilled this responsibility, and please transfer the funds. Honorable Tony Awani, did you ever in your investigation find anywhere where Musenero signed for money, Musenero received money, or transferred to any account which was mine? They know very well there was no money handled by Preside. The funds which were sent to State House is an entire system. Their ministry, they have systems. When I needed electricity paid, I sent the invoice, and they know it very well. The staff were appointed by State House. So, whereas they show that the truth, especially the work of the scientists have done, is very fantastic. This work had never been done before in Uganda. Now our scientists are very, very excited to be doing this work. Now we are progressing. I also want to state that there is no single report where Musenero received the money. Please, Ugandans, I want you to know that there was no money which was lost, which was sent to Preside scientists. The money which was lost was never released. And I hope, Dr. Wakida, you have those documents which show the money which was released. They gave us first the 7-point-something billion. That money we distributed, we instructed them to transfer to the different scientists. And all those scientists accounted for that money. There is an allegation in that report that I did not provide accounts. Then how did the Auditor General audit? How could an Auditor General audit when there is no accountability? There is no single time the Auditor General asked for those, because they would write to the Minister of Science, the PS would write to us, just like all other projects, entities they were dealing with. Sometimes they would take the files, sometimes they would come and audit in the Preside office. So for me, it is very hypocritical that one, they do not talk about the accounting officer who was responsible for this money. They are putting blame on a person whose work was purely technical. The money, the 2.6 billion, they needed to ask Mr. Bong and PSST. I have documents which show, and they never asked for those documents, otherwise I would have provided. I have documents which show how much money was distributed to the scientists. The one that I authorized, I wrote to them because according to the MOU, I was the one to tell the Minister of Science that this project is good to receive money now. And I did that faithfully. I, Musenero, my salary was paid for by the office of the president because I was a presidential advisor. I remember receiving per diem to go out on 3 nights, total 3 nights, to go and do monitoring and evaluation. I needed to find out why is the committee protecting the accounting officer and trying to come after Musenero. Secondly, they are mixing up issues. This money which they talk about, which Preside received, which was 28-point-something billion, which the Preside scientists received or allocated to Preside from 2020, 2021, I was not minister. I was simply a technical officer. I never touched money. Preside didn't have an account. The issue they are not telling every Ugandan is that this Yona Musinguzi is a former staff of the ministry. Those people did not appreciate that the ministry was abolished by the president. And they started to witch hunt me from day one, the day I was made minister. They have been working to make sure that I fail. By the time this committee was established, honorable members, finances for the financial year 2021-2022 had not been released. And they were not released until December. So it cannot be counted as part of their investigation. It cannot be included. At the time of instituting this investigation, when Honorable Yona Musinguzi raised these issues, the money which had been released was only the funds which were the 28 point something billion, which had been dispersed to the scientists, and it has all been accounted for. Some of the funds were released in June. So it is possible that there was some money which the scientists may not have accounted for. Maybe that could be found in the 490 something. But the Auditor General was doing a final audit. And they did the final audit, and the audit did not show anything. They keep talking about environment and trying to make a very big issue of it. Let me explain what they are calling environment. There is one scientist who was working on 3 projects. And we discovered the 2 projects could not progress. And the funds were not there in the Ministry of Science and Technology. And in my maybe not so much experience, but I wrote and asked, I copied in the PS, the letter. When the Auditor General audited the first audit, they told me, no, don't do this. And we wrote back in response to the management letter, saying we have noted, we are not going to do that again. They were very parental, knowing this is a very young institution. I'm very disappointed because I put my life on the line. I worked to start something in this country which had never been done. This was emergency. It was the peak of COVID. Who was going to start following? All offices were closed. Who was going to start following nitty-gritties? Let me explain. The Ministry of Science put out a call for proposals. They got over 300 proposals, and not a single one was about vaccines, was about the molecular diagnostics we wanted. There are those who wanted to do rapid, but that's not what the president had instructed us. There was not one that was talking about clinical trials. We got the projects which had been submitted to MOSTI and approved by the Committee for National Innovation Research Fund. We filtered out any that fitted the ones that we were supposed to support, and we included them. And these committee members know that because they even went and visited these people. So for them to come, do an investigation, find out exactly that what the research is progressed, the funds have been used properly, and that report, about 80% of it is okay. It gets spoiled where they try to find a witch hunt, where they try to link Musenero. And the hypocrisy is very, very clear. How do you not ask the accounting officer? So everything the accounting officer told them was right. It was Musenero. I have seen these people. They were saying, oh, Musenero was so powerful. How was Musenero powerful? I wrote every request. Did I refuse to submit anything? It is all there. I can tell you, all the documents are there. The issue they talk about blocking money. The president abolished the ministry. The president removed the position of permanent secretary for that ministry. The minister had been changed. Both the minister and the permanent secretary refused to hand over for over a month. And they were working so hard to get this money. So I went to finance and consulted and said, now, these people are not going to be there. I've tried to inquire how they are planning to spend the money. They have refused. So they told me, you write to the minister. I wrote to a very senior, experienced minister. If I was doing wrong, why didn't he write to me or call me and say, no, my daughter, don't do that? He saw that there was reason and sense There was a plan to spend that entire money, 167 billion, in a very short time. They had already decided how they were going to spend it and then leave the best for me because I had no accounting officer. Okay. Mr. Tony knows very well that the money that they are talking about, all this trying to put all the money, there was money put in the former ministry, 2.74 billion. Why didn't you inquire what that money has done? Have you seen any projects that money has done? The people persecuting me, let me end here. They are not persecuting me because I'm corrupt. They are persecuting me because they believe I should not be minister. I have never received a single cent of that money. That money was sent from the ministry directly to the scientists. These are big institutions. They are counted. The electronic transfers are there, and I provided those electronic transfers. They accused me of appointing my family. I have one family member who is my personal assistant, and if any of you does not have a relative as a personal assistant, I was being persecuted and haunted. People want to kill me. Who will get me food, whom I can rely on? The rest of the staff, I have no relationship with them. Okay. And it has been confirmed. But after doing all this, people say Preside was mismanaged, mad by mismanagement. Why? The staff, they said they are not qualified. Those staff were not supposed to do scientific work. Those support, that is a secretariat. The scientific committee was there, and the think tanks were there to do the scientific work. These were small administrative staff. So the committee did a good job to verify some things. However, their passion to persecute Msenero overrode them at the end. And the recommendations, that's why one member said yesterday that how come this committee does not hold anybody accountable? Look into the issue of the accounting officer. If you want to be fair and honest, look into the issue of the accounting officer to find the 2.6 billion. I have a letter from them informing me that ministry did not release all the 5 billion. They released the 3 point something. And the letter that I wrote allocating these funds to them to release was for 3 point something billion. And this committee got all this information. Okay. So they wrote a good report at the beginning, but at the end, the passion, the desire to incriminate Msenero, I don't know who dragged that in. It kind of brought out something. You can't read that report and don't find something sinister at the end. Okay, Doctor, thanks for that. Before you go, there was one of the findings was that you are a minister right now. You are also the head of Preside, but you are also a presidential advisor. Is that still the position, Doctor? Why are you holding three? Thank you for that question. Thank you for that question. On the issue of being a minister and presidential advisor is a position appointed by public service. As a minister, I automatically become a presidential advisor in my area. Now, by the time I was answering those questions, and these are things that needs to be explained to the public. In June, I was made minister. However, we went into transition and we had no structure, we had no funds until December. So I could not appoint a chairperson, I could not do anything until the funds were released, and secondly, until we had a new structure released. So this being chair of Preside was to hold fort, just to hold the things there. There was no money. The scientists didn't receive money for 6 months. There was zero money, so I was not overseeing anything there. It was just to keep the team going. Who is the current, have you since then appointed a new chairman? Who is the current chairman? I'm in the process of appointing a new chairman.
And then finally,
For 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Finally, there was an accusation that you usurped the powers of the National Council for Science and Technology, the powers of the Uganda, which other organization?
Uganda National Council of Science and Technology.
Yes.
No, UNRO.
Yes,
This one is
yes.
just coming from the members. You see, the members do not understand the functions of the different entities in the country. And for that, I don't blame them so much, because unless you are really in science, inside science, you can't understand some of the details. The projects that we do, the work is registered at a certain point. People write the proposal, they refine. For example, if you're going to do a clinical trial, you have to receive the money, then you start to do the protocol. There might be a few things that because you are going to register that clinical trial when the protocol is ready. There is a place, because when you're registering your protocol, your methods must be clear. Now, during COVID, the institutions, including National Drug Authority, the National Council of Science and Technology, UNRO, they came together. They are regulatory institutions. They don't do research. They are regulatory. They regulate. So to fast track COVID research, they came together and formed a joint review body. And any project which had sufficient information now to register, they registered with the National Council. But if you're doing construction of a building like the laboratory animal house, there is a subcommittee in the National Council, which the biosafety committee, which does that, which comes and supervises that. You are not going to see that registration in the system. Then there were projects which were just procurement. For example, there was a project to procure equipment to support development of rapid diagnostic kits for Professor Nantulia. He had nothing to register. Then there were projects which by the time these people were coming to investigate, they were still submitting there. You submit, they return, you submit, they return. There is a process. So that one is just for them to understand. If you are not in the day-to-day issues of science, that one is easy for them to make a mistake. Otherwise, National Drug Authority, UNRO is the Uganda National Health Research Organization, and the UNCST, the National Council of Science and Technology, they formed a joint review board. There is no single project which was registered. Those organizations don't do research per se.
Okay.
They regulate science.
Okay.
And we followed all those details.
Yes. I just wanted to, Honorable, do all ministers hold a portfolio of presidential advisor under their docket?
No, as a minister, first, that is your primary role, to advise the president.
No, but yes, it is a role you play because you have
yes.
You have been given delegated powers on behalf of the principal. But are you saying that in your case you are supposed to be given 2 salaries?
No.
You don't.
No, I don't receive any salaries. You can't receive 2 salaries from public service.
Yeah.
I was a senior presidential advisor because I wasn't a minister.
Okay.
So I needed a special appointment in order to advise the president.
Okay, that has been understood.
But now that I'm a minister,
we have understood that.
No, that is very clear. I am not.
Now,
yeah.
I just wanted you to, my colleagues here want to ask you a question each, but I wanted to ask you, overall, we appreciate you, and we would wish that this discussions on the investigation end pretty fast, so that then you can, both the committee members and yourself are at peace. But I just want to ask an overall question based on whatever amount that has been spent on the this committee under preside, for which it was meant research. Are you satisfied with the efficiency and the effectiveness of whatever amount of money was put in this particular area of research for COVID? Are you satisfied with the performance?
Yes, extremely. And even the committee can tell you, it's just that because the monies they allocate are not as big, and I didn't want more money allocated at this stage because we were starting. So I'm also testing the scientists. You know, the committee said that we didn't monitor the projects, but they just didn't ask, because the monitoring reports are there. We had bi-monthly meetings every 2 months. We had Zoom meetings because it was COVID time. We went through every project. Because this is the first time we are doing this, we call it peer monitoring.
Okay.
It is the people, the scientists that do the peer monitoring. The work is doing extremely well.
Okay, that's fine.
Work of vaccine, which they do in a, allow me just 1 minute to say this. The work we did in 1 year, and now the progress where we have reached, if we hadn't been interrupted for 6 months, that work usually takes 5 years to 10 years for countries which are starting. We did it in 1 year.
Okay,
yeah,
granted.
the team is very, but of course now they are feeling very demotivated. Since I'm not coming back, I want to express my fear at the way some members of parliament are treating me. They have threatened my life, and I feel very sad that after serving my country with so much love, I think you have all seen that video.
No,
it is
Honorable,
very, very sad.
Honorable, can I counsel you, Honorable? You are a public officer. You should put on more thick skin and be able to handle the hardest of situations. We are taught in management of institutions that you will have it high, you will have it low. Take it that perhaps that is one of your lowest moments, but you are a public officer and you shouldn't lose steam because of that.
I don't want to agree with you, because this was, you know, part of the reason people have given is because I'm a woman. That is why they want to intimidate me.
No, you shouldn't be
that
intimidated.
That attack was totally unwarranted. It was humiliating. I don't think that for me, I should just be that because I'm a public figure. I don't think anybody, if a matter is being handled by institutions, why do you want to humiliate? Actually, he was coming to beat me. It is because my security interfered.
Let me bring, I'm sorry about that, Honorable, and it's good that, it's why we are happy that we have given you an opportunity to put the record straight, and the facts will speak for themselves. Let me request, Sarah wants to ask you a question.
Good evening, Doctor, and straight to the question. Were you at any moment bothered by the absence of legal status of the institution you were heading? Because normally governments, project work is allocated project numbers by Ministry of Finance for purposes of proper tracking and trail of money, and even proper institution where the project is under, because now preside was under 2 ministries, Ministry of Science and Technology and then State House. Did you seek advice at any moment on how to start work of preside by establishing a project number allocated by Ministry of Finance, or creating a legal status for that institution? And my second question, the report points out disparities on salaries. The figures don't match The money spent on salaries is 1.4 billion, and the appointment letters amount to 444 million. What creates this kind of disparity?
Thank you very much for those questions. Again, I want to reiterate, Preside was created as an emergency. We were actually under lockdown, and we received the funds. The first funds that were, actually the funds that were availed to us was for Secretariat for us to set up was in August 2020. And when the scientists received the funds starting September of 2020, I can show very many drafts of documents. I actually even met the previous Attorney General. But I was told this is an emergency. You see, I was not the one working on this. The person who received the directive was the Prime Minister. He actually launched Preside. There was the Minister of Finance. There was the Minister of Science. I did not come wanachewa, I kwewagula, and put there Preside. Everybody understood. But as we were now trying to go into the next year with legal status, things changed. I was appointed minister, and we went on hold. But we have drafts of documents, and we had held some preliminary meetings to see how to give a legal status. But the Ministry of Science and Technology actually put Preside in their structure. And if you look at the funding for 2021-2022, Preside was incorporated into the Ministry of Science's structure. As just like in the science, we have a lot of projects. We have mostly projects, most of the money. So Preside was still treated like a project. And there are many projects under there which are not, they don't have a legal status.
Numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were working on that. We were, and I can show drafts of documents, but really Preside operated for like 9 months. And then all that work that they are talking about was for 9 months. Then the second question was discrepancies in salaries. I want the Ugandans, and you asked the question, to know. The accounting officers handled this. Musenero was not involved in the money. Once the staff were appointed with their salaries were paid to their accounts. It was the accounting officer who had received the money. So for me, I did not go in there inquiring. And again, as we were ending, when I would have said, okay, this money, how did it come? There were changes. I became a minister, accounting officers were changed, and that disrupted quite a lot of things. So it is not that there was any carelessness, but there were very difficult situations that we had to handle. But the State House Comptroller, who is now there, she has now settled. I'm sure she can trace this money. And I don't know whether funds go back, because those funds most of those funds were released very late in June. Actually, either in the last week of May or in June. So it's possible that some money went back. I wish you to note that there was a new State House Comptroller who just came, and then this investigation was ongoing. I'm sure when she has settled, she can look and give the committee, but I was not involved in the management of the money. Either the money which went to science or the money which went to State House Comptroller.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know how many.
Honorable, your colleague, Honorable Mapenduzi, wants to ask you a question.
Mine is...
Please.
Mine is not a question as such, just some comments. Number one, I think it was unfortunate that the other member of parliament went very personal, and sometimes, you know, people struggle to control their emotions, but I think that was unfortunate. And hopefully the Honorable Minister will understand that. But there are two important areas. Whatever you are telling us right now, Honorable Minister, I definitely pick very many information from that. But I also want to believe that the committee did a good job. And the report, the content of their report is quite, gave us a lot of insight. One key area where I think you should be held responsible is the aspect of, you know, having funds utilized for certain activities without those activities going through the required approvals. And it's indicated in the, and so when you allow resources to be utilized without certain procedures followed, then you are held, actually first, that causes financial loss to government, and the law is clear, when you cause financial loss to government, you are held responsible. You actually make good. And so for me, the idea of Parliament, and I want to believe that much as some members may have their, you know, ways of how they, I think it's unfortunate if there are people who are taking this or who are being influenced to which
it's obvious.
Yes, to which under Honorable Minister. But for me, that does not take, that does not take you away from the responsibility of, you know, because obviously, much as there is an accounting officer, you were in charge of this.
Yes.
You were in charge of this, and so you are the one we talk
and
to.
The payments were
and
made
so
according
we have
to
to,
her
yes, and so we have to hold you accountable. And for me, the best step I would suggest is for you to step aside, let the investigation continue. And unfortunately, what I have noticed in the short time I have been in Parliament is that when public servants are called to appear before committees, sometimes they exhibit arrogance, and sometimes even some of them do not want to come. And I'm not talking about Honorable Musenero. I have seen with many ministers. And then when reports come out, then you begin to hear the real information, the very useful information that should guide us, come when the reports are out. But when investigations are going on, so I think there is also need to improve certain things at Parliament. But just as the Honorable Minister is saying,
or in government.
Exactly. Maybe also from what the Minister is saying, we need to reflect deeply as Parliament, whether we are doing what we think is good, or whether we need to improve on how we interact with people, we deal with the people we invite, and all that. It's key. But for me, there should be no impunity, and people who abuse public funds are not fit to occupy public offices. And so if the Honorable Minister is found to be part of those, I don't think she would be fit to stay in that position.
I think I want to make a comment.
But let's first end with her.
I want her when she's listening.
Okay.
You see,
and I'm free to stay. If
I want to make this comment.
I'm okay.
To help.
Okay. If you want me to stay, I can stay.
I want you to
stay with us. Stay with us,
Honorable. This comment. Honorable Mapenduzi.
Yeah, I can, because these are important things. And this is an opportunity given me. And I would like to just
Honorable Mapenduzi.
I would like to say something after Mr. Wakida.
Okay.
On what you are not telling on that TV is who was accountable for the 15.8 and the 15.2 billion shillings. Was it Msenero, or was it the permanent secretary and the minister, Mr. Elioda? Tell the public, look there in the camera.
Thank you very much. You see, that is where I said Dr. Wakida needs to...
No, you see...
Listen here, let me respond.
Yes.
Because you see how you also talk to people matters a lot. Don't dictate. This is the thing. A whistleblower brought out a matter. Listen, let me finish. I'm responsible. I'm responding to
A
that.
witch hunter.
Wait.
That was a witch
Well,
hunter.
how you call him? I
It's
don't
not
know.
a whistleblower.
A whistleblower brought out a matter on the floor of Parliament. Parliament decided, the Speaker decided, all right, in our own wisdom, that a select committee be formed. A select committee was formed. The committee has presented a report. My business is to look at the outcome of that assignment, the content of the report.
Who was responsible for the accountability?
I think that is for the vice chair to answer.
That is, you ask him, but I'm telling you, I am telling you what I have read.
I have another
you see,
I have another
because look here, the way you are bringing this looks like you. I'm not sure whether you are a beneficiary.
You see,
Beg some serious questions.
Beneficiary in this. I don't know, because I need to.
I want to make a
So, Doctor, the zeal with which Dr. Wakita is
I see how you are handling this.
begs a lot.
You're likely to be a beneficiary.
I have in relation to this.
No,
when the fake signatures came out, Honorable Mapenduzi, your signature is on that. Even when you knew how signatures in public are achieved, would you be independent in your thinking when you sit here?
No, I am.
Did
I'm
your
being
signature
independent.
come out?
Wait, there was a signature from Friday that they want Session Senator. I have that. Honorable Mapenduzi, your signature is there.
But would
No,
that
wait,
be wrong?
wait a minute. How are signatures in Parliament made?
Can I tell you this?
There is a motion
Can I
for
tell you this?
censure.
It's not there yet.
No, can I tell you this? No.
Wait.
That is a process.
It's a
Can I tell you
process.
this?
Yes.
My position is very clear on public funds and how we manage public offices.
My question
And
was what?
Look, because you see, and that is why I said you talk so in a way that makes me a bit suspicious. Because look, my
it can be a subject of
duty as a member of parliament, and I can never be compromised. I will never allow the rule to be bent.
Absolutely.
Things to do with public funds, things to do with public offices, there should be no compromise.
The question I'm
whether it's so it's my duty.
Yes.
Whether I've stated it would be fair for her to step aside.
Yes. The question
And I
I'm
would be
asking-
more than happy to have her actually
question I am
censored.
asking
And your
If-
opinion should be respected.
Mr. Mapenduzi, my question was clear. And
course,
really,
that
for
P1, that's the question.
even a primary one kid can answer. You are a honorable member.
Please go ahead.
In the ministry, whatever ministry, who is appointed to do accountability?
No, but Patrick,
I-
that question is for the committee vice
no,
chair.
not even for the committee.
Mapendus can answer.
No, I can answer.
But
Listen
yes,
here.
I have asked that question.
No,
because
I
of
don't
one-
think
Let
I
me
don't
answer.
think
Let
there
me
is
answer
change.
because you are asking me.
I'm a person.
You see, Dr. Wakida, you are refusing
now.
to listen to Tony, Honorable Tony. Honorable Tony said, when they invited Dr. Musenero, when they invited the PS, when they invited other people, and this is what he said.
Yes.
And I'm basing that based on what he
Yes.
said. And that is exactly what the report said. The report says there was an MOU signed.
Absolutely.
Clear? An MOU signed.
Do you want to read that?
Listen, no, I'm not going to read your document, whatever you got them from. I am talking about the report.
Read it. You have it on your iPad.
I have read the report. You are not going to tell me the part you want to hear, just like a summary you made. Their report is clear that there are clear accountability channels created in this particular project. And that is where I'm asking.
Can I ask that of Dr. Musenero instead? Doctor,
yes.
someone, Tony, I'm coming to you.
Yes.
Someone called Benjamin says, the minister can be excused of everything, but not responsibility for the docket she was in charge of, and which cannot be delegated. What do you think about that?
That is it.
Thank you. What was the docket that I was in charge of?
Preside.
And under what capacity?
Preside.
Now that's what I want. That's what I want to explain. I was a project under an accounting officer. The accounting officer received the funds. Are you hearing me?
Yes, Doctor.
Loud and clear.
Sure.
Yes. So what was my responsibility?
You
My
were
responsibilities were
superintending
spelled out
over.
very well. Technical work.
Do you do an MOU with the
I was
non-legal
supposed to identify the scientists and the projects. I was supposed to ensure the technical soundness of the projects. I was supposed to support the scientists to prepare their proposals. By the way, all these projects were in the proposal which was submitted to finance, and finance submitted it to that parliament. So all the proposals, all the monies were approved, including the institution where that money is going. And when the Minister of Finance, the PSST, then wrote a letter to the permanent secretary, gave instructions of how the money is going to go. So when you ask, when something happens in your docket, one, the committee finds out that the technical work went on very well. They talk about certificates. I gave certificates. It's just because they didn't ask. Every document they asked, I gave. I spent days, not hours, days with this committee. My docket was, did I find the science? Yes. Did I prepare the projects? Yes. Did I supervise the projects? Yes. Did I monitor the projects? Yes. Did I issue the certificates? Yes. The money was sent to the scientists. Did I collect the accountabilities from the scientists and give them to most? Yes. Because members, if I had not collected the accountabilities, Auditor General would have nothing to audit. You can't tell me Musenero didn't submit accountabilities when the Auditor General has produced 2 reports. Where did the audit reports that people are reading come from? I provided the accountabilities on time. The PSC wrote to me the first time to say submit the accountabilities, and I did that the next day. I had to collect these files from upcountry, but I made those scientists more. There is no money which went to the scientists which got lost.
Okay.
That is the only money that I was accountable for. The money which has been released to the scientists, and there is no evidence anywhere provided. The committee didn't mention that money which went to this institution got lost. The money which got lost because it was not released by the accounting office.
Okay. The Vice Chairperson, Tony, wants to ask you a question. Tony, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Musenero. My sister Sarah touched on something about the legality of preside. And when we hosted the former PS, we also put this question to him. And he said, under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, MOSTI, there were quite a number of subventions.
Yeah.
And then, he went on to say, in as far as their assessment was concerned, preside did not qualify as a subvention. So I was just trying to add on to the question that Sarah has brought forward. Then on the issue of salaries.
Who put it in the ministerial statement?
Listen. Then on the issue of the salaries, the discrepancies, 1.4 billion versus 440 million. I hope you are aware we made a field trip, a field visit to your office in Tinda. And you know how difficult it was for us to trace that office. They gave us a Google pin location, and it almost took us about 6 hours to locate that place. We asked them, why did you put up a signpost? She's like, because of the issues surrounding, the critical issues surrounding these things of preside, we have decided to keep this office without a signpost. We put them on record. Why wouldn't you put, this is a public office. This is not a secret service.
I'll respond to that.
Yes. So now, on the issue of the salary, listen,
that.
On the issue of the salary, we asked for the payroll. We were perturbed. When we asked for the payroll, nothing was produced before us. So why shouldn't we?
Did you ask State House? Did you ask?
No, we asked the administrator.
Where?
Of preside.
No, the administrator preside.
The administrator of Madam
Who
Kapi.
sends the requisition for payment?
Yes.
The
administrator the administrator of preside should be having the copies of this payment.
The user department doctor
Yes.
sends the requisition
Exactly.
for payment.
Okay, let me
listen, let me finish. Let me finish.
How other projects in State House work.
Honorable Minister, can you allow me finish and then you explain?
You know,
then there was this document. Listen, Honorable Minister, there was this document that you requested Dr. Wakida to show here to prove that there was a sinister motive by the former PS and the former minister planning to swindle some money. But you remember, listen,
don't put words in my mouth.
Listen, I'm not putting words in your mouth. It is here.
Which document?
Wakida, you showed me something here.
What I was showing are leases, and they are here.
I didn't say that.
And then, listen, Dr. Elijah Cooper will bear me witness. You told me you had the evidence. You told me you had the evidence to lay on table. And then I challenge you. Why weren't you on record? Because you said you had the evidence that the former minister and the former PS wanted to eat the money. Then I was like, you're making the work of the committee very difficult. Elijah Cooper was there.
Where did I? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
at the end of our investigation, that day you appeared, I personally put this question to you. Then you waited until the session was over.
Is it on the Hansard?
It wasn't. That's why I told you should have been on record.
Everything I said was on the Hansard.
Doesn't your committee work with the recordings? I know parliamentary recordings.
Yes, let's go for them.
Listen.
Let's go for the Hansard.
At the end of the investigation, at the end of that session, Mr. Odongto, at the end of that session, she stepped forward to me and says, you know what? The reason why I blocked that money was because I was suspicious the minister and the former PS wanted to eat the money. I said, but why didn't you say this on record? You're making the work of the committee difficult. And that's why we could not include it in our report. And that's why we are not going after the minister. Perhaps you would have helped us also to put the minister and the former PS on spot.
Honorable Minister, I wish that you respond to Tony's, but
maybe I add just one other issue. The minister says the terms of references did not spell that you should be subjected under investigation. But one of the terms of references clearly states that and other matters incidental to the investigation.
For most terms of reference say that. Just like in contracts of employment.
Exactly.
But she was the head of the entity.
Exactly. So there's no way you could have exonerated yourself from this. You are a subject matter of investigation under these terms of reference. And then allow me to say this. The goodwill of the president should not be squandered. Our president acted in goodwill. The scientists gave him the assurance, but the management of these funds to the scientists raised a lot of questions. And we beg, please kindly don't squander the goodwill of our president in all his presidential initiatives. Yes.
Okay, can you allow me to answer these issues before I forget them?
Please respond to them.
One, legal status. The legal status I have already answered. There were many institutions that were involved in setting up Preside. The person who received the directive was the Prime Minister. So Musenero did not set up Preside alone. So if there was error, it was not error of Musenero. It was an institutional error. And I've already informed you, we had already talked to the Attorney General. We had already consulted lawyers. We had tried to draft the framework. Then as we were moving into the next financial year where this was going to happen, change came. By then, the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation checked their ministerial statement for 2021-2022. It has Preside in there. it has reports of preside in there, it has money in there. So if the ministry thought preside was illegal, why did they put it in the ministerial statement? Secondly, payroll. Preside was not set up, and there is nowhere absolutely where it is mentioned that we release this money to preside. These staff were State House staff. They join a long payroll of State House staff. We did not, our administration was simply a representation. All our human resource was done in State House. The appointments were done in State House. Every procurement was done in State House. We had no reason to start keeping a payroll. And I can tell you that up to now, for me, the moment the staff said they were getting the money that they had been appointed for, the right person to provide that information. Because for me, it was to pay the staff. The money had not been released to me. The money had been released to State House Comptroller to do that work. And I think you all understand. It would be very, very imprudent of me to start saying, give me payroll. I received the appointment letters, copies of the appointment letters of the staff, and the Human Resource Department in State House has the rest of the information. They paid this staff for a long time. Evidence to lay on the table for, this is trying to put words in my mouth. I said it and I said it here. I had the concern. The minister had been not reappointed. The PS had been removed. And then you are insisting to release funds. How? Who is going to be accountable for these funds? By now, you would be holding me accountable. By the way, I did that after consulting the technical people in finance. They said, okay, for us, we can't stop the money, but if you give us a letter, and I own that letter, and I don't regret that I protected government resources. That one I don't regret. Now there is this issue. People try to make sound like I moved huge sums of money from one institution to another. Absolutely no. Money never left a principal investigator. It was the same person. And why did I do that? I explained this, by the way, to Auditor General. They said, no. We forgive you now because this is your first time. Don't do it again. I said, I will not do it again. But there was money.
There's an addition of guilt.
Yes, let me explain, because this was the management letter.
No, let her explain.
Yes, this was not found out by the committee. This was in Auditor General's management letter. It was, I think, the only query, the only comment, and they made a recommendation. And we replied and said it will not happen again, because there was a scientist. We didn't have diagnostics. People were being charged $65. This scientist who had a fast tracking diagnostic, it was moving fast. But then the funds took long to come for us to replenish. We had given her just half of the money. It got finished. But she had this money for one project which was not progressing. So I consulted and said she can use that money and we shall refer. But when the Auditor General came, they said, no, this is not correct. And this was on two projects, one at the request, because there was a project we stalled, and the PI said, now we have this need. Can we do this? I said, okay, let's do that, because this other project is not moving. And I know that may not have been right, but the committee kept thinking that I moved the money from UVRI to VCTM. No, the PI for that project was UVRI, Professor Ponciano. He had this project in his same office. His same. Now, the interesting thing, members, is that they always fault me that I did not fund other projects. Now, these projects are the projects which had been submitted to Parliament for approval. I don't know what amount of trouble I would be in if I had taken on those other projects. So, Musenero did not eat money. Musenero did not receive money. There was, and that is why I apologized, because I said, okay, this moving of money, and I don't know, I haven't added up the amount of money. I don't know if the committee did. It wasn't a significant portion of the money which had been released. And it stayed with the same principal investigator. It was a matter of they requested, can I use this money for this project? And each project did not spend more than. So the remaining amount of money was not released because the project did not spend more. It was just that, okay, the money is not there. This research is going on. Finance has not released the money. Can we borrow this money and use for this project which is coming so we can get? So that is what they are saying, financial misappropriation. That one, I did it in error. I was informed by Auditor General, and I wrote in a management letter. I apologized in the management letter, and I said we will not do it again, and there is no evidence that it ever happened.
Honorable
again.
Minister, can you translate that into admission of guilt?
No.
Yes.
It's not admission of guilt. It was an error. Who doesn't commit error? It was a small error. It was not that money it was not that money was spent, or it was lost, or it was eaten. It was not money that we took and used it for something else. And I don't think, let's first investigate the 2 billion.
Honorable, financial loss can be caused either by omission or commission. So what you have just done is admitting that
there was no financial loss.
No, wait.
There was
what
no
you
financial
just
loss.
said is that there are things you did not do by your own account. But my question is, you keep saying you did not know.
Which ones?
No, you have said you made an error. You even wrote in a management letter to say you will not do it again.
Inexperience
yes,
also?
But
yes,
my question to you, Doctor.
That is the role of audit.
My question to you.
This is like, even when you get a first-class degree.
Can you please listen?
First-class degree is...
The problem is the Honorable Minister
even
does
if
not
you get
listen.
a first-class degree, they don't say 100%.
Okay, let me ask my question then.
First-class degree is 80.
Let me ask my question. Honorable, you've served in Makerere, you've served in many places, and you were even a senior presidential advisor, now a top political leader in the country. Did it ever occur to you that you needed financial advice before expending taxpayers' money? Because you keep saying you didn't know this, you didn't know that. Did you ever consult?
Okay, yes, I did. I can actually give you 2 letters I wrote asking the PS to guide how the financial management. I called, I wrote an email, and I wrote a letter, and there was 0 response.
Honorable, Honorable, your colleague, Honorable Paul Omara, who is one of the 5 members on the investigation committee, he says, Charles, Honorable Musenero we discovered in the investigation that she had taken over the powers of the minister and the PS Obong. That in fact, in the testimony of the 2, they said that Honorable Musenero was a very difficult person to manage. That even people in the Ministry of Finance feared her. She wrote letters directing the Ministry of Finance to direct where money should go. That should have been the work of the accounting officer, Obong, the PS. That is what Honorable Paul Omara, one of the 5 MPs on the committee, is saying, is there anything true with that in maybe in your interaction between Dr. Elioda, your predecessor, and your former PS Obong?
If you are coded and you can't work out.
Thank you for that question.
For office.
No, that's my point.
When people started persecuting me, they wanted to create a narrative of who I am. We worked extremely well with these people. The only thing is that the ministry failed to play its role in financial accountability. I wrote to twice. The letters are there asking, can you guide how we should and help the scientists how they should account? But I went ahead and managed to produce, to support the scientists to produce those accountabilities. I don't know anywhere where I argued, where I fought, where we worked together very well. So if they are saying I'm a difficult person, do they write anything? Or is this something which has come up because I was appointed minister? You look at the situation. I'm appointed minister. The minister is no longer there. And by the way, I talk with Honorable Yoda. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I talk with him. We talk. I consult him. There were projects that he was implementing, and I talked to him. You can ask him. So I don't know what they mean by saying that Msenero was difficult. I know the document they refer to because of the situation which was, now I've lost my track of thought, saying that there was a letter which I think they are saying that I wrote to finance, because the Minister of Finance had been given a directive. I used to give them copies of the technical reports. And he used to ask, how far you have gone with his vaccines? How far have you gone? So I wrote to him to submit this. So there was nowhere I usurped. And the Minister of Finance is a very experienced person. So this narrative of Msenero is difficult, Msenero is like this, it was just created. And I'm about to get off, but I want members to know that this is not the only issue which I have faced since I became minister related to my being minister. I have been persecuted from day one. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate. And again, like I suggested, Honorable Minister.
I'm going to leave.
Yes, I just want to appreciate you and thank you so much for finding time and sacrificing your valuable time to be on this show. I really appreciate it.
No. People are paying for my blood. So, but allow me to make one minute statement.
Yes.
If I leave, I love this nation.
Thank you.
I love Uganda.
Yeah.
I have something, knowledge in science and in epidemics, and also in other things which can be useful for the nation. And as I said, even if you get a first-class degree, we put your mark at 85. If this, according to this report, 85% of the report is on course. It is, the disconnection comes when you go to the recommendations. I did not handle any money. I did not touch any money. No money was given to preside. There is no letter written to me from the accounting officer saying this project has not accounted.
But that is
so
a contradiction.
let us be fair. Let us be fair, and let us look into the issues, just like all the other issues we look into. But to come for my blood, really, and paint me as a criminal, it is not fair. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Gentlemen and lady, very interesting. Sarah had not yet submitted. I'm going to give her 3 minutes. The rest of you, I'm going to give 1.5, and we wind up. And thanks a lot, Dr. Musenero. Sarah.
Yeah, I have questions for Tony and maybe the committee. There is a finding that the PSST said he released all the money.
Yes.
But you were unable to trace the 2.024 billion. Did you really ask the hard questions? And did you see the trail of this money?
That issue...
No, I'm coming.
Okay.
Just know the questions. Then my second question to you is really the biggest dilemma with all this process is the foundation. So how does the ministry get an MOU with a non-existing entity? It takes a matter of minutes to generate a project number, either under State House, either under whatever entity. How can you do an MOU with a non-existing entity? And the MOU itself is invalid.
It has even expired. They expired.
Yes, but even when the debt didn't matter, an MOU with who? With the heir. You don't do an MOU with an idea. You have to be a legal entity to contract.
Absolutely. Those were the issues we were raising.
So then my third question is, who requisitioned for these funds? Whose signature is it that caused money to move from one entity to another? And my last question is, because I listened to Professor Peter Egwang, when he was narrating the difficulty he had with accessing funds, even when he had already existing medicines that could help with COVID, including the syrup that we gave children under Omicron, which has existed for about 5 years on the market. So how come people like Egwang were never selected for such funds? What was the criteria?
And Dr. Lamwaka,
yes,
of Gulu University.
Is that your final...
My question for him, no, my final remarks, maybe, since I will not talk again, is that, you know, that there's a lot of vagueness and casual approach that government officers use towards taxpayers' money. Because as much as we were in a pandemic, government officers were working. They had clearance to move. They were working. So that, to me, that is not an excuse to say that we could not follow procedures. Because we were in a pandemic, then why were they in office? And how do you cause government money to move on the basis of air, no foundation? So I think in the large aspect of oversight function by Parliament, you need to make sure that such vagueness does not happen in the management of public funds.
Thank you. Honorable Mapenduzi, you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you.
But in one of 10 seconds of those, there is a lawyer called Paul Emi who has said, Galandi, who has said, please let Honorable Mapenduzi answer me. Is he going to move a motion against Honorable Naboth, who moved personally on Dr. Monica the way he moved the motion against Zake?
But that was outside Parliament.
Yeah. Again, tell the lawyer.
He's called Galandi Paul Emi.
Please forward my contact to that lawyer.
Yes.
We can have further discussion tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, we can talk about that tomorrow. But just to keep it short, from this experience, I think it's important that nobody, any of us, shouldn't allow to touch public funds unless we are sure that systems are in place. the moment you know that there are lots of questions about an institution, and when you accept to start touching money, then there will always be an impact. And I think this is probably what the Honorable Minister is going through. So this should be, and should be taken seriously by people who handle public funds. Because there should be no excuse that you see, I needed this because I needed that. Yes, you needed that. Your intentions may be very good. But at the end of the day, when it comes to talk about it, there are procedures to be followed. And we cannot run away from those procedures. So that's how I look at it. The other thing that is very important is the kind of excuses and blame game and running away from responsibilities that I always see. And I stated this, that sometimes when committees are working, people do not want to open up. And then when reports come, then you begin to hear a lot. Some of them true, some of them probably needs to be looked into, in a much deeper way. But I want to say this, Charles. Yesterday and today, and we have been talking about this here, that, and maybe to give you a report, because you said you want to see
what
whether
parliament. I am happy.
The 11th
this
parliament.
Week I am happy.
Yes, this report came. This report came, and whether somebody is happy with the report and somebody is not happy, that is not my business. Parliament did its part. The report is out. There are findings, good and bad. There are recommendations. We need to take the report as a tool to improve on how we manage systems. Then,
can I make a verdict on you MPs so far, the current parliament? You are doing well.
This week,
well,
now, you know why? Now, this report has come. It has generated the debate. We like it. Whichever way it will go, accountability issues, let's not go back on. Now, for me, I'm going to talk to my team, the production team, and we see the next one. The coffee thing, the report is also out.
By the way,
thank you very much.
We concluded that.
Then, before you know, there is also the report on the land.
Yes,
Naguru land.
Yes, also
a hot one.
And the debate on the bills, the financial amendment bills.
But then there is also on the streamlining of government authorities, departments. So for me,
so just to conclude in 2 seconds.
Dr. Wakida, be ready to come back. Yeah. Those are very important discussions we should bring all of you.
Maybe in 2 seconds or 3.
So far you are doing well.
We are trying, and hopefully we will
trying like this.
We are trying, but also as Parliament we should. Dr. Wakida, when I was in FDC.
You were?
Yes, I left FDC. Maybe I did not inform you. Maybe I did not
you may be bad of the favor.
Yes, I left. But I admire
he
what
was also there.
Okay.
He was also there.
Yeah, yes.
What we don't know is whether he left or whether he has just not destination.
True.
He informed us.
So much as we are trying as Parliament to do whatever we are trying to do, we should also allow the public.
And rules of natural justice.
Exactly. We should allow the public to give their views. We should respect. That's why I said maybe we need to, internal as Parliament, also reflect and see whether some of the things we are doing it correctly. So all of us will have to improve. But from the reports that we have received yesterday, today there were about 2-3 reports. And I can tell you, there are terrible things happening in this country.
We will discuss
terrible financial abuses. And for me, if you are a minister charged with the responsibility of serving this country, and you allow your ministry to abuse public funds under your watch, you are not fit to stay there.
Pilferage, a lot of it.
Yes.
We call them pilferages. Yes, Dr. Wakida.
I want to thank everybody.
Thank you.
I lack scrutiny, and this is what you're doing. But as you do this work, be straight.
Yeah, rules of natural justice.
I have gone
should
through
apply.
this report, and I want to summarize. I have asked here very hard questions. When you set up a ministry, there is an accounting officer, there is a minister. And I started by saying, Mustenero, who you are pointing at, just became a minister on the 21st of July, 2020. The money you are investigating was released in 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021. It would be very unfair for anybody to sit here and listen to the nonsense of a report saying that Mustenero was so powerful for even the Minister of Science and Technology. They have a Minister of Public something who heads all of the ministers, isn't it? They have the appointing authority. None of those produced a report which they gave to this committee to say that the minister is so powerful that we can't work with.
But Doctor, just one point.
Yes.
I remember at the beginning of this debate,
Yes.
the president made a statement, and he was at a function with Dr. Mustenero. He said, you better be careful. That is my most trusted.
I want to say this again.
Yes,
Sarah,
scientist.
yes. I want to summarize, it's my time, isn't it? I look at things and I look at people in the face. Whether you're my friend or you are not, I'll tell you, Sarah, I've dealt with you, know that. What I have found in this report, there are very serious recommendations for organization improvement.
Yes.
One of the recommendations, which we are not talking about here, is that government should increase the amount of money they give the scientists.
Yes.
The speed with which money is released should be expedited.
Yeah.
That the projects, the pathogen economy, for example, is a good thing that everybody of us shall. These recommendations are there. Now, we are focusing on money. Which money of the 28 billion shillings? 28 billion. I can rehearse myself here. 28 billion shillings was the only money that was released to the scientists. And I want anybody, whoever is, that 28 billion was released. There is no question in that report that the 28 billions that were released were not accounted for.
But what have these
No,
scientists
wait
done?
a minute. Even in this report, Sarah, I don't know whether you read this report.
No, I want to hear from the chair.
And
This question is for
no. You are asking me. I have this is their report.
And I want to throw this question also back to you. What have the scientists done?
No, let me ask you, in your report, to establish progress, you see, we are confusing this report.
No, I'm listening to you.
Odongoto,
I'm
you read
listening.
this report. That was objective number one of their terms of reference. To establish the progress. The progress. And in their report, this is not my report, by the way. This is what I did was I picked their summary. And in that terms of reference, the committee established that they approved 23 projects for funding in 2020 and 2021, which were undertaken by key scientific research institutions. Which are those? Makerere University, College of Veterinary Science, and the COVABS, Joint Clinical Research Center, and many of those organizations. By the way, the organization you are calling preside are those organizations where you, myself, went to school. They have the accounting system. Makerere University, for example, received the money. Chambogo University received. Busitema received. It's not individuals who received this money. They went ahead and said, overall, of the 23 projects that they started with, 15 progressed well. It's in their report.
Yes.
Now, why are you asking what have they done?
What is the product?
Each of
what
these.
is the
What is
value
the
for
product?
money?
Very good.
For Ugandans.
What is the
And I
product?
want to
Actually,
ask.
doctor.
Yes.
That question cannot be underestimated.
I want to
because
answer this.
all these discussions in Parliament, the discussion
Very
we have
good.
been having
Is
for the
there
last
value
2 hours
for
or
money?
so,
Doctor, we are
is
asking
about
value for money.
Is about
Is the
one
product
end,
on table?
Is about the public out there.
Okay.
Is saying
Yes,
where
is the product
is
on the table?
vaccine,
The value.
The value
where
for
is
money.
the value for
Odongo-
money.
Odongo
You know
Toro.
why? Because the boss
Yes.
promised, was it
Very good.
what was it called?
Yes.
What was the vaccine called? The president gave us a name.
He talked about the
And they
different
said it
things.
was for testing.
Now, that is the aim of all
What's
this.
the
The
value?
goal
And
is
I want to-
that vaccine.
I want to come-
And whether it was Dr. Musenero
Or anybody.
The scientists.
PS
Makerere,
or
it
the
doesn't
or the
matter. What is the
scientists
value?
in Makerere, in Uvri,
Because there must be a timeline.
there must be a vaccine
Very good.
or an explanation why it is not there to ensure that we tell the Ugandans value for money
and this
is this.
And this is the basis of this discussion.
Ogwang produced his
Wait,
Habit
Sarah.
amendment.
Sarah.
Dr.
can you
Lamwaka
please-
also
can you
produced
please
hers,
give
the
me?
Covilis.
Please.
What happens in research? What happens in research is that the first year, if you look at those research, the first year was a setup year. Each of these projects, I am sure, had a timeline.
True.
There was no project which, among us, this project, I want you to interest yourself. Amongst the projects that were
And the
approved,
MOU has rep-
I want you to look at those projects and see the specific timelines for deliverables.
Okay.
First year setup.
And that's why, by the Mr. Doctor,
Wait
No,
a
we are
minute.
winding
issue
up.
of
Wait a
assessment,
minute. You have
the
your
progress
time.
assessment.
You have your
But you have run out of your time.
I want to explain.
He's now eating
Because
into my time.
when you go for research, I do this.
Yes.
You have a timeline of deliverable. You have a timeline for recruitment of interviewers, for example, a timeline for setting up the facility, and that was within the first year. We are talking here, blaming these guys for not delivering anything. We haven't looked at the timeline.
The MOU has rep-
I went through these projects.
And COVID seems to
Each
be going
project
away.
has up to about 5 years. That's why in the next financial year, you members of parliament, you put in money for continuity of this project.
Sustainability.
You get the point? No, it was not sustainability. They were moving on clinical trials. It's in your report.
Please give money to Ogwang
And clinical
Lamwaka.
trials.
Absolutely.
was
Those who can
the
produce
next
products.
phase. Now, if you begin to ask a chicken which has just laid eggs that please produce babies, then you are not scientists. And you said you're a scientist. And that's the disappointment I have. You know that the ministry had to purchase equipment. You know the process of purchasing equipment in this place. This project has been in place for 9 years. How many months, you, honorable member, do you need to purchase equipment?
Okay.
You see, these are things we should be talking about.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wakida. Tony, wind up. We are
I like the zeal
No,
with which
you see,
Dr. Wakida is making a defense for
annoying
Senator.
because you
It
said
could
you're
be
a
annoying,
scientist.
but I like the zeal. I admire the
just-
zeal with which you have
it just
defended
doesn't
Dr.
make
Musenero.
sense.
Now, Mr. Doctor,
way forward.
I asked some
listen,
questions.
she asked some questions.
Please go ahead quickly.
For me to answer your question, we need to also interrogate circumstances under which the former PS
Was fired.
was fired.
But what did the committee do?
What did you do?
Because I'm asking you as a committee,
Was
what
that your
did
time?
what
You see,
are you finding
you can see.
in line with my questions?
Exactly. And that's why we are saying she should have consulted. She didn't do the consultation.
Whose signature caused the movement of money is my first question.
This is a question that we also ask. And that's why we are saying,
you don't know?
listen, that's why we are saying where the committee fell short,
Whose
the IGG
signature?
should take over.
Whose signature?
Honorable,
Yes.
whose signature caused
Caused
the
the money,
movement of
the
money?
movement of money.
This was a very powerful minister. I mean,
No.
listen, first listen. My response will help you understand this,
Yes.
Sarah.
No, do you
Listen,
know or you don't?
Listen.
But if I may say this.
First, listen.
Honorable Dr. Musene.
We need to end.
Yes. Yes. Honorable Dr. Musene said, let me say this, said, indeed, she took the decision to have money moved from some projects to other projects.
Yes.
And she acknowledged.
So who was requisitioning?
It was her.
That's what I wanted.
Yes, it
That's
was
what I
Musene who
wanted.
was requisitioning all these things.
That's
And that's
what-
why the former minister came out very boldly. First, listen, Okida. The former minister came out very boldly that Mr. Chairman of the committee, this was a presidential advisor, this was a chairman of preside, who was very difficult to handle.
So
She
she's
would
the
not even-
one who caused the movement. of money.
Absolutely. And she was even able to write letters to block
Then she
the
should
sector budget.
explain.
And that's why we are saying in our recommendation that she should be held culpable.
No,
Yes.
Tony.
Okay,
in all what you
And then
discuss,
let me say this.
You present
Let me say this,
yourself as
Mr.
a very
Doctor.
biased
As we
man.
wind out, there's no bias here.
Apart from
As we-
your MPs demanding that preside should be wound up, demanding that then some of you moving that she should be censured, I have never heard anything about the overall outcome or the goal of what this money was meant to do.
Yeah.
You are only focusing on we must censure her, we must do this.
Absolutely.
You guys are not talking about where, and I have not heard, maybe you did, but I have not heard that you are asking for value for the promised vaccine.
Listen, Mr. Doctor, like I told you,
And
in
I
the
didn't see
beginning,
it
we
in
didn't have
the-
time. You stated that we needed to balance the boat. Unfortunately, time could not allow us to balance the boat, to give the positive outcomes.
Okay.
No, we have talked
Yes.
about them.
Okay.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
discussed them. We have
Yes.
discussed them.
So now the issue is, like Honorable Sarah placed this question. Money was given, and then there was the product of this money to be availed. The timeline Dr. Wakida is running away from is what should also be subjected to scrutiny here. How many months now down the road? How many years down the road? We still don't have a vaccine.
I know when
Okay,
was the
but
money
did the
released?
2 billion move from Ministry of
This
Finance?
is the question. Did
Now you
investigate?
see, I wanted to
No,
answer
that
you.
question we have talked about.
We talked about
We
it.
have talked about
but
we're
listen,
not going
listen,
back to
Sarah.
it. Tony,
Listen,
we need to wind up.
the Auditor General's team appeared before the committee. It is on record. They said they traced through the system. They did not get the money.
Okay,
that's
fine.
why
It's not
that's
the
why we are
first time
saying-
money is getting lost in
Yes,
Uganda.
yes.
In Karamoja, one time money
So
was
it's
even
evaporated.
in Karamoja.
And that's why
In Karamoja,
that's
one
the
time
question now for all of us.
money. So maybe this is the same way. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you so much, Dr. Wakida. Thank you so much, Mapinduzi. And thanks, Sarah, from the team
If I
here.
send you to go and
Thank
catch
you
a
very
rat
much.
and you come back, I will
out there.
I will
Good
fire
night.
you.
Bye-bye. God bless you
So,
all.
Okina,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
The termites.
You know.
Jennifer, Jukila, Wagamba, I don't have waka. You pass the ice through me about my waka.